Or rather, let's start that one again. Our conversation with State Senator Joe Pittman is brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Got to get you in the right chamber there, Senator. How are you?
Good, Todd. No problem.
And I said in the news story today that it was the one-year anniversary, but I forgot Leap Day. So today is actually the one-year anniversary of your taking the oath of office, huh?
Yes, it was June 10th. And so yesterday when we were on the floor, I mentioned it was 365 days ago. And as I was sitting on the floor thinking about my comments, I realized we had a Leap Day in there.
Yeah.
So 366, I guess.
There you are. You're on the floor of the Senate, and you stand up in support of this resolution. And the resolution is to basically restore powers that many in the state legislature, the General Assembly, believe the governor has taken away from you to operate as the third of three branches of government and not four. So explain that, if you would.
Well, look, we are co-equal branches of government, as I said yesterday on the floor remarks. And regardless of party affiliation, this really is, in my opinion, in my belief, about executive power and its overreach. You know, this is not a chain of command. This is not a military. We are not subservient to the governor in any way. We are equals. And at the end of the day, over the last 3 months, this has not been governance by equal branches. You know, rather than consult and gain the advice and consent of the legislature, the governor decided to get the advice and consent of governors from other states on how and when to reopen. And it's just gotten beyond frustrating. If you look at the vote, it was a bipartisan vote. It was 31-19. There were two members of the Democratic caucus that also supported the resolution, and I believe there were about 10 members of the House Democrat caucus that supported the resolution. So this has become a bipartisan effort, and I just believe it's long overdue, actually.
Well, in your comments yesterday, and we have it in our news section today, you do talk about the fact that, well, let's put it this way. You said there's a fourth branch of the government now that has been created, and that is the bureaucracy branch. Explain that.
Well, over the years, and during my time with Senator White and my year in office here, our staff and I work endlessly to deal with cutting red tape and working through bureaucracy. And it has grown. It's candidly become much like a virus in its own right. And it has grown over the years, and it has become this web of rules and regulations and procedures. And what really frustrates me is that this bureaucracy is immune in many ways from even the power of the executive branch. And what I mean by that is cabinet secretaries and deputy secretaries come and go. You know, at best case, you have a cabinet secretary that is in a position for 8 years. Well, the bureaucracy underneath it becomes the same, and it festers there. And you know, there are good people within the system. It's like anything else. But there's just so many pieces to that puzzle, and it really has, in my view, become a fourth branch of government.
Representative Struzzi yesterday, in regards to the Reggie resolution, was talking about the fact that, you know, it really does tie into the COVID-19 declaration because, again, you're talking about executive power there. And it's pretty important, as far as I'm concerned, to understand that and you made the point yesterday, we're talking about not just Governor Wolf and the disaster declaration with COVID-19. Predecessors have used the power of the executive order, and what needs to happen is that that has to be curbed so that all three branches of the government are involved, and it's not just one issue at play here.
Oh, absolutely, and Reggie is another perfect example of that. You're absolutely right, Todd. It's those kinds of regulations that are what become a real frustration because we, as a General Assembly, actually have no input in that process unless we attempt to assert ourselves and stop it. And Jim's bill that the House reported out on Reggie is about us having a seat at the table. That bill doesn't stop Reggie. It simply says, in a nutshell, that if we're going to go down that path, if we're going to institute a carbon tax, the legislature has to approve its implementation. That's all that bill says. And so it's a perfect example of us just trying to get a seat at the table, candidly, a seat that we should have based on our constitutional prerogatives.
And one of the real key issues of that is what it does is it ties the state for a number of years and basically makes permanent a policy that is set by a governor in a term, but has long-term effects long beyond after that governor has done serving his or her term and after that legislature is out of office as well. So to me, that makes it a really key piece of legislation. Now, Governor Wolf has said, I have veto power over this. The Republican caucus says, oh, no, you don't. So are we headed for the courts?
I think invariably the third branch of government, the courts, are going to be the arbiter of this dispute. It is a concurrent resolution. We believe the Constitution is clear that a resolution is not required to be signed by the governor. When you think about it, Todd, if a governor declares an executive order, and the only way that we as a legislature can stop it is by passing a resolution that he has to sign, what's the point of our ability to check an executive order? It just defies logic. Mm-hmm. And so, we will go to the courts and, we'll see where it goes.
The law that the governor cites, or actually the constitutional section that the governor cites, says he has the veto power over any resolutions or bills which come his way. You rely, as a legislature, on several court decisions. First, there's a 1978 law that is part of Pennsylvania law, which gives you the authority. And secondarily, a court decision by State Superior Court in a criminal sentencing guidelines case that has very similar language to this. Is that the basic foundation of your contention, or is there something specifically written into the Constitution that gives you the authority with the resolution to override the governor?
Well, there are also sections of the Constitution, and I don't have it in front of me, but there are sections of the Constitution that refer to concurrent resolutions. And I would look at this like a constitutional amendment process, which actually we're voting on a constitutional amendment today. When we pass a concurrent resolution, it's very clear that that does not need to have the signature of the governor. So we pass an amendment to the Constitution, both chambers. We do that 2 sessions in a row, and then it goes to the ballot for the voters. It does not require the governor's signature, and it's very explicit about that. So that is also a piece of the Constitution that we look at and rely on. And, that's part of the issue is that any time you have a document, whether it's a Constitution or whether it's a piece of legislation, you can only put so many words on the paper. And at the end of the day, there is going to be issues of interpretation.
Well, as big as COVID-19 is, as big as Reggie is, as large as some of these issues are, it's a much bigger thing when you consider delineating the power structure in Harrisburg. You started our conversation by saying the word co-equal, and that's a really important part of the way Pennsylvania is governed.
It's the fabric of our republic, both at the state level and the federal level.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Senator Pittman, thanks so much. You mentioned a constitutional amendment you're voting on today. What's that about?
Well, it basically would put to the voters a ballot question, and it would not be until 2021 because we have to do it in 2 concurrent sessions. So what we will do today is we will likely pass the constitutional amendment. If the House passes it as well, it will be advertised this year. Then when we return in 2021, if the legislature passes the same, it will then go on the ballot, probably in November of 2021, for the voters to consider. And what that will do is it will, within the Constitution, expressly limit the time frame for an executive order.
Oh, okay. Very good. Well, I appreciate your time this morning. That seems like that'll be a pretty important vote as well. So you remain in Harrisburg. Representative Struzzi in Harrisburg. We're talking to him in our next hour. Senator Pittman, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Todd, anytime. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
See ya. You too. Bye.
Senator Joe Pittman with us here this morning on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1, FM 101.1